You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. This weekend in news, the Trump tax plan, or as some are deriding it, the Trump tax scam. Is it truly a victory for small government conservatives? We'll talk about that today. We're also going to address the CVS-Aetna merger and what that could mean for American healthcare, as well as net neutrality. Whatever happened to that argument? A little bit of wag the dog coming at us from Washington, D.C. this week. All that and more here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
Recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
Hey, Facebook Live, sorry about the loss of audio there. Got it fixed.
Give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I will remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
All right, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from beautiful sunny Phoenix, Arizona. I am really getting sick of saying that. God, I wish the temperature would drop. We had it for like 5 minutes. Like a week ago, we got down into the 70s and the 60s during the day. Oh, it was sweet. It was overcasty. It gave you that kind of nice wintry bracing feel. You know, the air was a little stiff when you walked out. It was good. And today we're back up in the freaking 80s. I don't know what in the world is going on here, but I can tell you this. It is not anthropomorphic climate change. No, it is not man-made climate change. I can assure you that. Because man didn't make the Sonoran Desert. It was freaking hot already when we got here. Anyway, fun things to go through this weekend. Fun things indeed. It is Sunday, the 3rd of December in the year of our Lord 2017. It is the first Sunday of Advent. If you follow the Advent calendar, make sure you pop that open, get your chocolate, and read that portion of the Bible. Tonight, my family and I will be celebrating Advent in the traditional fashion, lighting the first candle of the Advent wreath. I think it's a lovely tradition. My grandmother started that way in the back when my family attended First Presbyterian Church in Carteret, New Jersey, and my mother passed that on to my sister and I. Growing up, we lit the Advent wreath every year, and I introduced that to my new family as well, and I'm looking forward to it. It really does help keep the Christ in Christmas, I believe, because it's so easy. God, it's easy to get caught up in the huge commercialization of Christmas, especially in the lead up when all the gifts are arriving, you're wrapping things, and, you know, getting ready and getting geared up, putting up the Christmas lights, watching all the Christmas movies on, you know, whatever network Alphabet Soup has it on. But it's so easy to lose the message, and especially if you're like me and, you haven't quite locked in on your church home yet, because I've been to a couple of different churches throughout my time here in Arizona. I haven't found one that I'm quite locked into yet, and, you know, I got to make up my mind soon, because my oldest, Jack, is getting to be Sunday school age, so we got to figure that out. But it's so important, especially for your children, to realize and keep your family's traditions and be taught those traditions even just in the home, because in the frontier days, in absence of a pastor, in absence of a reverend, traditionally speaking, it was up to the father to keep the house in religious order and to keep the family right with God. And hey, I might get beat up for it. You know, the lefties and the SJW crowd will say, you know, he's a misogynist. No, not misogynist, I'm sorry. Even though I have been known to, no, I'm not a misogynist. But I believe in the role of a father as a spiritual head of the household. My wife is also a head of the household, because this is the 21st century. But that's one of those things I take seriously, is it's my job to make sure my family's right with God. But, wow! Somebody call Watson Prunier. I stole his microphone. Normally Watson, on the, the Battlefield Live, I always screw up the name of his show, but, Watson is the much more Christian-oriented show. If you haven't listened to him yet, I strongly recommend it. That's Watson Prunier. He's another podcaster here on the Lanterns Media Network. Awesome guy. And if you want to hear somebody who's right with the Bible, who's in the Spirit all the time, check out Watson Prunier's show. I digress. we got to get to some stuff. We got to talk about the tax plan, or the tax scam, as the anti-Trump brigade is now calling it. And I'm going to tell you outright that I believe the tax plan is a victory. It is a victory. Is it the end-all, be-all, no-holds-barred, absolute grand slam victory that President Trump and the White House are going to play this off to be, and that Mitch McConnell and that the Speaker of the House, oh, help me out, he's a schmuck, totally spacing on the name of the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, thank you, good brain, that they're going to tout this to be? No, this is not the grand slam out of the park victory that the GOP is going to try to hang their hat on right before the Christmas break. Folks, this is half the job getting done. Half the job. Why do I say it's half the job? Because, as we all know, the CBO is the paragon of honest analysis of finances. They're always right. Hang on, let me check something here. Hang on. It looks like they're wrong about 99% of the time. Is that accurate? Yeah, they're pretty much terrible at their job. So, the CBO has announced in a deficit study that the tax plan will grow the deficit by $1 trillion. By $1 trillion. Why is that? Why is everyone so tied up thinking that this thing needs to be revenue neutral? It's because you're cutting taxes, genius. You're bringing down the income of the government, which you're supposed to, I might add. Calvin Coolidge didn't do it once, he did it twice. Cut the entire government in half 2 times over. That is a 75% reduction in the size of government. That is what President Trump needs to go for. That's what the GOP needs to hang their hat on today. So they have done half the job. How you make this right is you go in and you hack and slash government. And I'm not talking about a fictional city in Grand Theft Auto. I mean, you take out the machete and you slash government spending. And how do you do that? We're going to jump into that when we come back from this break. But I'm going to warn you, it's going to get ugly in here, folks. It's going to get real. We're going to talk about things that are going to make both Republicans and Democrats hurt in their ouch place where brain should be. It's going to get real mean up in here. And I'm not just talking about welfare or Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare or Obamacare. I'm also throwing military spending on the table. That's right. The cuts are going to be deep, and the cuts gotta hurt. Because we are overextended, kids, and our economy is going to be circling the drain if we don't right the ship. So you're listening to the HoloNet Podcast live on the Lanterns Media Network. We're on Facebook Live. Check us out, HoloNet. Got that backwards. Facebook.com/HoloNet. You can tweet at Matt D. Holloway or at the HoloNet. Going to be here for the next 45 minutes, give or take or so. Jump in on the conversation. I love interacting live. I love reading tweets. Checking on the Facebook right now. Looks like AJ's triggered. AJ's triggered, everybody. Be careful. Josie Jackson. Woo! Let me see here. Josie Jackson's on. Renee Daigle. I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry, Renee. But hey, you guys hang with me now. So we're going to take this quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some ugly cuts that need to take place and how we need to start listening to the military instead of just ramming money down their throat and telling them to take it. We'll be back on the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
I see people coming together not for
for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. And the principles that founded our nation, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. We have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans, not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. I've covered a lot of stories, but the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century, when we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism, when we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, when we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there is one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from astonishingly and unseasonably warm Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your extremely over-caffeinated host, Matt Holloway. Got my my vintage HoloNet podcast limited edition. How limited? I only made one. Limited edition coffee mug here. These are excellent little party favors. If you are interested in one, go ahead and check out our patreon.com so that way you can give me enough money to make more. Because this right now is not a profit-generating venture, folks. I have seen a very successful mug club employed by the Steven Crowder Louder with Crowder YouTube channel. So I'm going to give that shameless plug and try to rip off his idea, because selling coffee mugs keeps the lights on over there, and strikes me as being a good move. So I did want to launch into this new topic of spending cuts. Oh my God, spending cuts. Spending cuts, that means you actually must have looked at the congressional budget once or twice. That means you're a nerd! Yeah, well, the glasses notwithstanding, and, you know, the 1791 t-shirt, which means at some point or another I've read, watched, or listened to The Blaze. Yeah, I guess that qualifies me for some strong nerd status. And if anybody hasn't noticed the fact that my show is peppered with, science fiction-y sound effects for the purposes of not getting sued, yeah, bit of a nerd. So, what I want to kind of touch on today is that not only are spending cuts possible, but necessary in every facet of government. And I mean every facet of government. And yes, Josie Jackson, even military spending cuts. Even the sacred cow of the Republican Party, the U.S. military. And I'll tell you about that real quick. Story dated September 18th, 2017. This is from New York Times. Ugh, I know, I felt a little dirty just clicking on it. But the Senate passed a $700 billion, with a B, Pentagon bill, more money than the Trump administration sought. They say Washington, in a rare act of bipartisanship on Capitol Hill, the Senate passed a $700 billion defense policy bill on Monday that set forth a muscular vision of America as a global power with a Pentagon budget that far exceeds what the Trump administration asked for. Senators voted 89-9 to approve the measure known as the National Defense Authorization Act, heard that one before, which the House has already adopted a similar version. So just to give you a couple of highlights from this, I'm going to kind of break from the script of just reading from the story because I think that's really just kind of lazy, and I kick myself every time I fall into that trap. There's a couple of pieces on here that really jumped out and bit me. One of them was on military.com. There was another one on Bloomberg. Here we go. Specifically, the measure authorized 94 F-35 jets made by Lockheed Martin Corporation, which were 24 more jets than the president requested in his budget, and actually, let me see here, 7 more than the House put in their version of the bill. So this kind of goes to the old chestnut of stop giving the Pentagon crap they didn't ask for. Who should drive the procurement of military hardware? Should the military drive the procurement of their own hardware? Or should Congress, who get boatloads of money, I mean pants loads of money from companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, General Dynamics, ask me how I know. I'm an Arizonan, okay? Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, they run Tucson. They run Tucson. Why? Because you have the big three down there right next to who? Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, where they deploy these puppies, where they test them, they design them, they fly them, and then up here, right next door to me, over by Luke Air Force Base, that's where they train our American pilots to fly them. So in Arizona, if you're in the political game and Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon don't like you, guess what you don't do? You don't get reelected. That's right, kids. The call's coming from inside the house. Think about it for a minute. What's more important to you as a politician? Getting the military what they need? Or getting Lockheed Martin that contract they want real dang bad? Real dang bad. And they just love giving to your pack. They'll give to your pack all day long as you keep priming the pump every single time they need you to. Quid pro quo? Guys, if you see smoke, there's fire. None of them's going to be dumb enough to fill out a contract that says, sure, if you give me money, I'll make sure those jets go through. But it is common freaking sense, kids. Senator John McCain has a deep, deep, deep war chest. Ask Kelly Ward, she'll let you know. Jeff Flake as well. Lobbyism, lobbyism, lobbyism. Stephen Airy, my brother, joining on. Said, cut all spending now. Reason I don't like lobbies. Amen. Lobbyists, lobbyists, lobbyists. You can't even walk through the halls, let alone the halls of Congress. You can't walk through the halls of the legislature in Phoenix without brushing elbows with some of the top executives from these companies. And it ain't just Arizona, baby. We're talking about, in California, the Navy. You're going to have every ship manufacturer on God's good earth there, every weapons dealer, too. You go out to Virginia, Norfolk, not Norfolk, Norfolk. That's how they pronounce it down there. The censors don't like it. Sorry, that's the name of the city. Yeah, down there, you're going to see all manner of trash happening in the Commonwealth of Virginia's legislature, bought and sold 5 times over. Never mind the fact that you have the big shipbuilders like as I said, General Dynamics. I don't believe I mentioned Ingvalis. They're huge. They're actually up, I think, in Connecticut. I think they are, and they handle a lot of our aircraft carriers, kids. Think about this for just a couple of minutes. Seattle, home of our boomer fleet, the subs with the missiles on them that make things go boom real good? Yeah, right next door to some of the biggest developers in the world like, I don't know, Boeing? So think about it. The military-industrial complex, the sweetheart soundbite that every single tinfoil hat loves to point to, There's some accuracy there. Eisenhower tried to warn us, but he tried to warn us too dang late. That is where you can make a military budget cut. Stop ordering crap they didn't ask for and crap they don't need. Meanwhile, increase the pay. Nobody who has any sanity is going to discuss reducing benefits to our soldiers. They're not going to talk about reducing the pay for our soldiers. Why? Because the people deserve the money, not the deep pockets who are funding the political machine. And here at Lanterns, our mission is we're here to fix the machine. Well, the first thing you gotta do to fix the machine is cut the taxes and cut the spending. Now, the smart way to do business is to cut the spending first, then cut the taxes so you don't shock the system too hard. But President Trump, in his common style, has decided to go the other way. So first we're going to cut the taxes and rank up, about $1 trillion in deficit spending before somebody pulls the fire alarm, or we have an economic collapse one way or another. So is it a victory? Yes, it's definitely a victory. But this is not the victory that we're all looking for. Now, I'm not just going to talk to you a little bit about cutting the military, even though that's the part that I promise I just lost half my audience over, because I'm saying cut military spending. I'm not saying cut military spending in a stupid way. I'm saying cut military spending in a smart way. I want us to have more aircraft carriers than the next 10 countries lined up together. I want us to be able to turn a small part of the desert into glass, if you get my meaning. I want us to have a fully modernized nuclear arsenal, the very best weapons, body armor, and medical supplies that our troops can possibly have. I want us to have the most survivable army in the world, with the lowest casualties in any operational setting. We need to have the best of the best for the men and women who are the best of the best, but damn, we need to do it smarter. And the way you do that smarter is you put the Pentagon in charge of their own dang pocketbook and stop all the sweetheart spending. Have I ranted hard enough on that? Well, good, because I have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left, and I'm going to rant a little harder about something that's even more impactful for my generation and for everybody else's. Let's talk about Social Security. If you think Social Security is going to be there for you and you're anything close to my age, I got a bridge up in northern Arizona. I think it's in Kingman. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. The old London Bridge. Yeah, I want to sell that bad boy to you because Social Security is not going to be there for us. It never was going to be. I am not going to collect it. I better hope to God I have enough in my 401ks, plural, because I keep everyone I get, and I don't mix them together, because diversification is good. I better hope that I can buy some gold or some Bitcoin at some point, because Social Security will not be there for me. If I'm very lucky, it'll be there to help out my parents. If I'm very lucky. But here's how you fix that, and it's a prescription that nobody wants to write. It's called a cutoff, folks. Stop the bleeding and stop it now. What you do is you pick a date. Let's say January 1st, 2018. Everyone who is over the age of 18 as of that date gets an opt-out. If you want out, here's the check of everything that you paid into it at this point, and you will no longer be taxed for Social Security. Our government seems to love deficit spending anyway, so what the hell does it matter? So stop taking Social Security from anybody who does not want to pay out from it any longer. And then you continue paying out to the people who put in the money already and who are counting on that because the government promised it to the people. That is the way that you kill Social Security in 2 generations. It's done. It's over. People can handle their own dang retirement just the way they did prior to this 1940s boondoggle that has wrapped the American economy up in the government's back pocket for the last 60 years. You can be out of it in 2 generations. 2. That's 50 years, kids. Then you want to talk to me about healthcare? Then we can talk about healthcare. But first, we have to stop the cradle-to-grave welfare state that our country has become. Whew! I'm charged up today, man. I think I've had too much coffee. I didn't think that was a thing. This is life-giving juice from a bean right here, and it's peppermint mocha. Yeah, I'm not going to go basic and drink my pumpkin spice this week. So We're going to take another quick break. I'm going to try to catch my breath and see if I can turn a slightly paler shade because I got a little red on that one. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the upcoming merger of CVS and Aetna. That's right, the idiots who lose your prescription every now and again, and I ain't just talking about CVS, they're Walgreens, Rite Aid, and everybody else, are now going to be in charge of the insurance plan too. Nothing can possibly go wrong with that, right? All that and more when we come back here on the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Holloway. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, and I want to thank you for your continued listenership and readership and all the support that you've given me and everyone here at Lanterns over the course of the last year or so. Now, as we come up on a year of delivering this podcast on a weekly basis, we've begun to feel a bit more like a community here at Lanterns.buzz, and right now, we're a community that's in need of assistance. So I wanted to call on all of you today, if you can, to log on to patreon.com and search for Lanterns on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/lanterns, because we need your assistance in order to build this network out bigger, stronger, and better than it's ever been. With your support, we can bring in more voices that have been stifled. We can celebrate American exceptionalism. We can grow and educate our people. We can lift a lantern to shine a light into the darkness. Our mission is to shine a light on the actions that our government is taking now or have taken in the past to threaten the rights of Americans without consideration to the political party or organization. We will expose destructive counterculture that aim to destroy the idea of America and celebrate the parts of our culture that live up to the great ideals formally expressed by our founders. Up until now, our entire operations have been funded from the generous contributions of our team members. That generosity has created a growing demand for our pro-American content, and with that growth has come new challenges to expand our operations. Our goal is to expand and maintain the operations of our website and the radio network. And we humbly and graciously ask that you consider supporting Lanterns.buzz by becoming a patron on patreon.com. Again, that's www.patreon.com/lanterns.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. If you want to give us a follow or like or a share, please, for the love of all that's good and holy, do so. You can do so on Facebook at facebook.com/HoloNet. You can follow us on Twitter at Matt D. Holloway or at the HoloNet. You can also find us on lanterns.buzz. As always, listen on iHeartRadio, tune in, anywhere else you get your podcast, really. And furthermore, check us out on the holonet.com, home of all things HoloNet, where you can see this smiling mug anytime you want. Now, did want to poke a little fun at my fellow Lanterneer and producer of the Defenders of American Exceptionalism and co-host Stephen Airy, who was wondering during our Patreon Lantern spot, where was the In the Arms of the Angels music? Sorry, that only goes with Susan Sarandon begging for money. I can't use it because it's copywritten, and you actually have to use it with Susan Sarandon begging you for some bleeding heart cause. That's the only way you're allowed to use it. So, I digress. We're going to come back now. We're going to talk a little bit about this CVS deal. CVS, according to NewYorkTimes.com, man, I seem to be going to them a lot today. They are going to purchase Aetna for $69 billion with a B dollars. CVS Health on Sunday said it agreed to buy Aetna for $69 billion in a deal that would combine the drugstore giant with one of the biggest health insurers in the United States and has the potential to reshape the American healthcare industry. Under the terms of the deal, CVS will pay $207 a share based on Friday's closing prices, and it could create a formidable force in a changing healthcare landscape as many of the players attempt to lower the high cost of healthcare. Now, how crazy is this? I want to talk to you about a concept known as vertical integration. Okay? And we're going to have to go back in time. We're going to have to jump in the Wayback Machine. Hang on, got to calibrate it first. All right, we're all calibrated now. We need to jump in the Wayback Machine to the early 1900s to Standard Oil. Mr. J.D. Rockefeller. Oh, boy. John Rockefeller created his Standard Oil monstrosity, which later on became ExxonMobil. Standard, I think, still has a couple of their own gas stations. Like Sinclair was a good piece of that. It was the breakup of the Baby Bills before the Baby Bills. So, Mr. Rockefeller had Standard Oil. Standard Oil owned the exploration, the drilling, the pumping, the refining, transport, and retail purchase of oil and all oil products. So you put Standard Oil in your car, you put Standard Oil gasoline or Esso gasoline into the gas tank, and every step along the way somebody put a penny in Mr. Rockefeller's pocket. Antitrust law is one of the very few points of government intrusion into the economy that I agree with. I'll say that now, and I know I'm going to rankle some of my libertarian cohorts here, but that is one of the few instances of government interference with the economy that I agree with. Because if you have one vertically integrated entity, in this case Standard Oil, controlling the entirety of a market, it creates an environment that is not suitable to conduct business within. It creates an unfair advantage for one single body. Google! Excuse me. Oh, jeez. That just came right out. Facebook! Yeah, jeez. All that fun stuff. Anyway, this is what the CVS-Aetna merger represents to a certain extent. The way this would be fully realized is if CVS, Aetna's hybrid, whatever that's going to be called, probably CVS, health insurance or something like that. They usually go with the stronger brand. If they became, let's say, a hospital provider or a direct medical provider, let's say, for example, that this CVS Aetna monstrosity 5 years down the road decides to purchase Banner hospitals. Because if you don't live in Arizona, Banner's real big out here. They own like 6 hospitals or something like that. I think all 3 of my kids were born in 2 Banner hospitals, and they recently purchased like the university, the ASU hospital that's in downtown Phoenix. you also have like John C. Lincoln, which is another big company. Let's say this Aetna CVS monstrosity purchased one of them. That, I think, would represent the final evolution of a fully vertically integrated healthcare monopoly, or a potential monopoly in that area. Because if you have a part of the country where CVS has the optimum market penetration, where they have basically out-marketed and out-built and out-retailed the competitors such as Rite Aid in the East, Walgreens all over the country, if they've won in an area, and then they're also the health insurance provider, and then they were also the actual medical provider providing the practice or the hospital, that would represent a monopolistic problem. Now, this initial combination of Aetna and CVS doesn't necessarily create that, but it seems a step in the wrong direction, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, am I going crazy here? Feel free to pipe up on the chat. But I have to point this out when it bears pointing out. Because the truth does not have an agenda. And there are good causes for the government to intervene in the business world. They are incredibly limited. I am very much in favor for as close to a laissez-faire economy as we can possibly get. But there are some situations where the government does need to regulate. And when it comes down to the same idiots who can't keep your pharmaceuticals straight in the store are now running the pharmacy plan, the pharmaceutical health plan that is supposed to pay for them, I don't know if I trust CVS that much to provide a quality level of customer service. There it is. Your thoughts. Make sure you pipe in on Twitter, Facebook. I want to hear what you have to say. I don't think I'm being hypocritical on this one. You know, I do believe I can still call myself a free market capitalist, constitutional conservative, and still say that, gee, I don't think it's a good idea to center that much of the economy into one company. Then again, I don't feel that way about Google. I don't feel that way about Microsoft. But it is what it is. Yeah, Stephen piping up, they should have done Walgreens, not CVS. I like it, Steve. I like it. So, want to take a quick little jog over to Twitter. And what I normally find happening on a Sunday is that on Sunday, Twitter's been taken over by football. I'm competing with football. That's not a good thing. I mean, especially when I'm competing with college football playoffs, yeah, the CBF playoffs. There's a whole bunch of things on Twitter right now that are not remotely related to the news. But I did want to draw your attention to a bunch of crap that is flying around right now about the Trump tax plan. It's being referred to as the Trump tax scam. Folks, don't buy in. Don't buy in. I mean, I think I got an alert that Walter Koenig, Star Trek fame, played Chekhov, piped up and tweeted for the first time in like 6 months telling people, don't buy into the Trump tax scam. It's not a scam, kids. It's half of the equation. You reduce the taxing, you reduce the spending, and you get the government right. The key here is that we have to remain vigilant, and we have to stay on top of our legislators in Congress and on top of President Trump and make sure that they close the deal. This president is the art of the deal guy. Close the deal. You don't just cut the taxes, you cut the spending, and you make it right. Now, with this last 15 minutes, I want to jump into net neutrality. And this is a really sensitive topic, and it is a very, very difficult one to address in the conservative community because there are many views of it. And it's not cut clean and dry. It is not plain and simple. At the end of the day, I really like Ajit Pai and what the FCC is doing right now and looking to go back to a light touch. But at the same time, you can't have companies running roughshod. So, I want to alert you to a couple of facts about net neutrality and what the White House and the FCC seek to do right now. And we're going to start that when we come back from this quick break. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. I'm pretty sure that we'll get a little dirty on this one. Not going to agree with everybody, but I hope you'll take what I have to say seriously and give it more thought than a hashtag. We'll be right back.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Matt Holloway. Now, when it comes down to net neutrality, as I started to get into before that quick little break, there is no cut, clean, and dry, black and white discussion when it comes to this. You're going to see a lot of YouTubers. You're going to see a lot of talking heads on TV go one way or the other. What I'm going to tell you now is that it bears more investigation than a simple hashtag. One thing that you really do need to bear into this is that the initial net neutrality, which was introduced by the Obama administration back in 2015, was essentially written by Google. These are facts. Okay? It was compiled to favor content producers like, hi, I'm a content producer. I'm a small content producer. So is net neutrality good for me or bad for me? A lot of people are going to say it's really good for me because it allows me access to the bandwidth to do what I do. However, as someone who's worked with and for internet service providers in the past, I will tell you that they're not going to create a fast lane for, higher speed travel. They're going to put everybody else to a slow lane if they do so. And it makes no sense to do so. The type of prioritization that everybody's accusing internet service providers of gearing up toward costs more than they would make from it. I'm going to point that out to you again. It costs more than they would make from it. The amount of money that they would bring in does not cover the infrastructural changes that would be necessary to their networks, to their billing, to their existing setup. So it doesn't make sense on its face. So there's your first prima facie evidence that net neutrality was built to defend against a straw man argument. That your internet service provider is going to begin charging you gated rates, essentially, for content. Now, we can talk all day about how video game creators are putting everything and God behind a pay gate. We can talk about how content creators like CBS, shots fired, calling you out, CBS is putting things behind a paywall. Star Trek Discovery. Yeah, fell into that trap, hook, line, and sinker. They got me. Yeah, I've been watching Star Trek Discovery and paying my $5 a month to do it. This is not the internet service providers doing. Most internet service providers are interested in providing you the fastest possible internet speeds and making the most money from it, and the way you do that is you edge out the other guys. Less government involvement is key. A light touch on regulation is key. And I do want to point out to you that the renaissance, the greatest growth of the internet business model took place in the 10 years prior to 2015. I'll say that again because it bears repeating. The greatest growth in the internet took place in the decade prior to 2015. That's when net neutrality came about. 2015. And since then, we've seen a little bit of growth, but nothing near the explosivity of the first 15 years of the 21st century. Why is that? Because when you regulate the internet as a telecom instead of as an information service, the government gets far more say. It discourages investment in the industry. It's not how you bring in capital. It's not how you bring in growth and innovation and disruption. It was government intervention that made AT&T a monopoly in the first place. And then the government righted the ship by intervening and saying, no, you need to allow other people to play in this field. Is that what we want for the internet? Do we want it to get locked down to you have these 3 cell phone providers and you have these 3 primary internet service providers and every other ISP in the world, in the country gets choked out because they can't keep up? Because that's the direction that we're headed right now with government intervention in the internet. Government is fire. Okay? It has values. It's a tool. It's a friend sometimes. It can defend you. It can keep you warm. It can feed you. But it is so very dangerous when it is not controlled. So I would say eye net neutrality very carefully. Should it be a situation where we just wantonly strip away the Band-Aid and take away all restrictions on the internet and all regulation on the internet? No. Should people be picketing outside of Ajit Pal's house and threatening his family on Thanksgiving? No. What they're looking to do is to go back to the same regulatory regimen that was in place during the greatest, most explosive period of internet investment and development in history. And I think that bears some looking at. Are there internet regulations, internet restrictions that we have to be very wary of? Do we have to be cautious of what internet service providers are allowed and are not allowed to charge for? Yes. But does that mean broad sanction for the government to come in and take over? No. Moderation is what is called for here. And the only way that happens is when we listen to each other. And what we're seeing right now is the partisan divide broken into another category. I'm conservative, which means I should automatically be purely anti-net neutrality. Or you're liberal, which means you should be automatically pro-net neutrality. See, here's the problem, though. You can be small government and still be anti-monopoly. Think about it. We need to help rediscover the places in the middle where we meet and where we understand as Americans. And shutting the other side of the conversation down is not the way to do that. So think critically, think carefully, and speak wisely. And always from the heart. On that note, kids, it is getting to be that time again. Yes, indeed. We're going to wrap this one up, put it in the bag. I want to thank you for giving me an hour of your time once again this week. It's been a pleasure as always. It looks like I got to retighten my mount. Stupid thing sliding down on me. Ah, there it goes. Anywho, from Phoenix, Arizona, I'm your host of the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, Matt Holloway. On this first night of Advent, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face to shine upon you, lift His countenance unto you, and bring you peace. Good night, America. podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HoloNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on Patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HoloNet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/theHoloNet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HoloNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HoloNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.